In
Hola, my dears. Welcome to your first educational video about a specific element of astrology. And I thought that we would begin with the signs. So we will be discussing Cancer today because we are now in Cancer season. So perhaps it will be a great way for you to reflect on just how you're feeling during Cancer season, the highlights, like what themes are being highlighted naturally during this time for you to get kind of a better understanding of the sign itself, okay, of the frequency. And so the sign of Cancer. So this is the fourth sign of the zodiac. It's ruled by the moon. Okay, so every planet rules a sign, and Cancer is ruled by the moon. So, I mean, that says a lot right there, right? It's deeply emotional. It's very fluctuating, and Cancer is cardinal water. So, cardinal signs, because every sign has a quality, and then every sign has an element. Okay, so the quality of Cancer is cardinal, and the element that it is associated with is water. Okay, so cardinal water. And so just to say, there are no other cardinal water signs. There's only one cardinal water sign. Okay, just to understand that. And I think that it's better to just take this step by step. And then next month, when we talk about Leo, then we'll talk about the quality and the element of that. So just step by step, let's learn about this rather than too much information all at once. But just to let you know that every sign is unique, okay? And so Cancer is the only cardinal water sign. So cardinal signs are initiators. It's initiatory energy. So it's like starting something, beginning something. And for, um, you know, like a water sign, it's beginning emotional connections. So the thing with water signs is that they need connection, and especially Cancer. Okay. Now, if we were to look at a wheel, like an astrology wheel, we would see that the fourth house, which is associated with Cancer because Cancer is the fourth sign, is at the very bottom of the wheel. So the thing about Cancer is that it is like the deepest part of what we are. And it's also what the weight of everything else is resting on. Okay. So this is a very, very important sign. And I would say it is the aspect of ourselves that we want to run away from the most. Now, you don't have to have planets in Cancer because everybody has Cancer in their chart, right? Like Cancer is ruling one of the houses in your chart. And, if you want to know more, then, book a session with me. We can even do like a short session, right? In order to understand more fully and completely how Cancer is working within your own psyche, within your own blueprint, your own, special expression of the divine. But regardless, Cancer is the very base and root of what we are as human beings. Okay, it's really important to like amplify that, is that we are incarnated into these bodies because we are really committed to having a human experience. And there is definitely a lot of talk anymore about like this transcendence out of. And I think that and there's definitely an awakening happening. There's definitely an awakening of consciousness happening on this planet. This is for sure. However, this kind of understanding that we will be like leaving the body. And I think it's because a lot of people are going through so much. So it's because of pain and confusion and disconnection. And so there's this great hope that we can just disconnect from our humanity so that we can be in a much more kind of like cosmic mind orientated space where then there's not as many feelings anymore. And Cancer is feelings, the deepest feelings. Cancer is all about childhood. It's about where we've come from. It's the family unit. And it's also in a lot of ways our heritage. So it can even be like a sense of nationalism. Okay. But let's begin with the childhood. So in your mother's womb, there was a great psychic bond that was generated between you and her. And whatever it was that your mother was experiencing during that 9-month period had a great impact on you and really did create some kind of imprint on you emotionally. And then after birth, for the first 3 years, there is a very strong connection with the mother or the mother figure because there is a biological understanding and a strong psychic connection that even though you didn't know, okay, because it's all very primal and it's very instinctual when we're babies, right? There is a knowing that this is the person that is going to keep you alive. So, it's a very strong need and it's based on survival. And this survival, yes, that does encompass nourishment, right? So mother and family are going to feed you. But it's also about love. So it's nourishment, but also nurturance. And the quality of love, and they have done many, like a lot of research about this now, that a baby that does not receive love will die. It is a requirement. And so the depth of that kind of longing is so great. And also to understand that if a huge part of what we are, which is this deep, unconscious, emotional inner space, has that much of an impact because it was all created before we were 3 years old. It's highly psychological and highly emotional, and it's also extremely unconscious. So this is the moon stuff. This is why I do moon work, is because it helps to bring elements of the unconscious into conscious awareness. And it is a process, right? It's not just going to happen overnight, and it's not something that just, that we can just kind of like arrive too quickly. It's a process of really going deep, 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 deep into ourselves and into a place where most of us don't really want to be. So elements of family can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And yet it is the basis of what we are. And when we try to run from our families, we find that we can never really run that far because we are our families. You cannot disconnect yourself from where you've come from. It is actually impossible because the blood that runs through your veins and the genetics that is the makeup of this body is a part of the line, the ancestral line that you chose. And you chose the line for very specific reasons because the line itself had everything that you needed in order to have the exact experience that you're having. So this longing to disconnect, but at the same point, the longing to connect So you see how I feel that in Western countries like Canada, the US, I can only speak for these two countries, okay? But it is definitely a trend where there is this highlighting on independence and a breaking away from the family, okay? And in a lot of ways, there is an element of healthiness to this because we are finding out who we are as individuals apart from the expectations that the family has placed on us. So, yes, it is actually an important process. However, the repercussions of this breaking away is a loneliness and a disconnection. And there's something about the tribal experience that family provides that is part of the human experience. And so we must understand the consequences of breaking away and that we may be looking for connection in all the wrong places, right? Like this is where most of like addictive tendencies come into play is because we're looking for connection to something. And this can even be to a television. You know, there's many different forms of addiction. It doesn't have to just be drugs and alcohol. It can be many things that we try to find some sense of connection through. Now, the thing with cancer is that the kinds of connections that cancer needs is like human contact. You cannot experience the depth of the connection with cancer through social media. This is not about Zooming with people. This is not about, like technological connection. This is real human contact. This is like, holding hands, being close, feeling skin, feeling warmth. And it's essential to our development. So, most of us, when we were children, we did not have our emotional needs met in the ways that we needed. And I think this is a big kind of reason why people then break away from their family because they feel as though they don't belong or that they never had what they needed with the family unit anyway, right? We didn't have our emotional needs met. And so therefore we feel that we can just discard this, this unit of people and we will find a way to meet our needs emotionally. And this is necessary. And really, like the most important aspect of having your emotional needs met is that you, first of all, can even define your emotional needs. Because most of our issues in adult relationships, like intimate relationships, stem from a lack of understanding of our emotional needs and what really occurred in our childhood that created like dysfunctional methods of connection. This can be over attachment, it can be under attachment, right? There's many different ways that this can show up and create issues in our adult relationships. So to understand our emotional needs is the first step. And then the next step is to be able to care for as much as we can of our own emotional needs. Now, of course, you cannot do it all. You can't, but you can do a great deal. And this helps to alleviate a lot of the attachment, like over attachment, that comes in codependence in relationships that people experience. Because they really feel that their partner should be able to, for one thing, just unconsciously like read their minds, read their vibes, and be able to provide whatever they need without even asking or articulating. And the other part is that truly there is no one person that can fulfill us completely. This is why we have family and siblings, like mother, father, siblings, and then we have very close friends and we have our partner. Like there's a myriad kind of like tribe of people. And this is where the tribal consciousness is still at play, even though we love to think that we're independent beings and that we don't need anybody and that we're fine on our own, you know? But really, we need a multitude of different connections in order to not even satisfy. Cancer is more about more than satisfaction. It is necessity. Need is a very big word with Cancer. And so safety and security are of the utmost importance. Okay? And safety is not necessarily about being in a safe environment all the time. I'm going to read you some interesting quotes that popped up when I was, like organizing my thoughts around this, and I found it so interesting. So this is a quote from Gabor Mate. He is a Canadian psychologist, and he does a lot of work on trauma and reconnection. And so, and addiction, like just, he's a super intelligent person. I'm sure most of you have heard of him. So what he says is safety is not the absence of a threat. It is the presence of connection. And for Cancer, this is very, very real. It isn't about not feeling safe so much as it is about feeling connected. And there's a huge disconnect right now, right? Like societally, we're not connected. Being in Mexico, like it's interesting because I'm an outsider here. So I'm not really connected with the society here. However, I am witnessing what it means to be connected and to have connection. And I understand more deeply now the need for family because the people of Mexico are still very family orientated for the most part. Of course, there's elements of individuation that have occurred here, but for the most part, people here are very, very dependent on their families. And there's some kind of beauty about this. I don't think that we should just like throw this away. I think we need to really reconsider. And and when we heal our relationships with our family, we heal one of the deepest parts of ourselves. And healing is not about just being okay with things suddenly now, like, oh, I'll just forgive them. It's about conversation. It's about being vulnerable, right? Cancer in and of itself is about vulnerability, which isn't easy. Cancer's like symbolism is the crab. And the crab is like one of the softest, most tender beings. So tender. The flesh of a crab, like, wow, super sensitive, can feel so much. And yet has this like hard outer exterior as a way to protect. So as much as Cancer is extremely and desires vulnerability, wants to be vulnerable, there's also this tendency to like put up walls and protect oneself and get very defensive. That's definitely one of the shadow of the crab is defensiveness and passive aggressiveness, right? Like not just being direct with what it is that you need. Because it's kind of like how the crab works, right? It sidesteps. It's like, oh, go over here, oh, go over here, but never just direct into the situation. And maybe that's why families tend to have that kind of energy, right? Of never directly dealing with issues, especially from the past, but rather always like sidestepping around them. And so it can leave a lot of, unattended wounds and a lot of hurt and confusion, and not kind of like the bravery and the ability to look at things directly for ancestral healing. So it's interesting that it tends to be the individual that heals the line on some level, right? It's generally the black sheep of the family, that breaks away and changes kind of like the genetic codes on some level. However, it's more about the attitude of the disconnection that I have learned myself because I have tried it too, and then have come to understand how I do need my family. Because, the family is the one unit of beings that knows you the very best, for better or for worse. So there is an element of necessity to be connected to the family unit and to do your best to work out the issues within the family because it is a reflection of you. And yes, you can do individual work away from the family. However, I think that it is more potent when we do it with the family as much as possible. So feelings are a huge part of the world of Cancer and feeling into things, being very empathic. Okay, so really, and caring about people so much. The moon being the ruler is that of the mother. So Cancer in a lot of ways has very strong mothering tendencies because it is connected to that family access, right? So there's like a very strong mothering vibe that comes through with Cancer, wanting to care for, wanting to nurture, wanting to cook, wanting to, just like um, really like hold and be held. These are, where tears flow with Cancer. Tears flow. Maybe this is what the cardinal water is the initiation of just like crying and letting out emotion and letting ourselves be seen. In nature, it would be crashing waves. So every water sign has like every single sign has something in nature that represents it. And so for Cancer, it's like crashing waves in the ocean. It's initiatory water, right? It's like, oh, there's energy behind a crashing wave, and then it recedes. And the moon, has like this strong correlation and connection with the ocean. So it really does make sense. But also these tears of like vulnerability and tears of feeling, like to deeply feel is a gift. And yet, oh, it's so sad that we live in a world where it feels so unsafe, right? And I think because lack of connection, but it feels unsafe to be vulnerable. It feels unsafe to be soft. And if Cancer is not able to be soft, then there is a dysfunction within the expression itself. So yes, emotions and following our emotions, feeling our feelings deeply and completely, and being in spaces that allow us to really express ourselves like honestly. Okay. Okay. Now, okay, I always have notes. Okay, I'm such a note person. I'm a Virgo, right? Oh, yes. Okay, so let's talk about home. Okay, so home is also a big part of what Cancer is about. And so, first of all, we can see it symbolized through the crab because this tender being lives within its shell, right? And this is home. So whenever there is something that is happening in the outer world that, Cancer does not want to be a part of, it can just retreat into its shell, right? So for a lot of us, this is actually home, like the building that we live in, the home that we have chosen to like put all of our somethings, and it's our space where we can just relax, be ourselves, and that's one thing to really note, is that we are more ourselves at home than any other place, right? Like out in the world, we put on faces. And, the polarity of Cancer, which is Capricorn, which is like the public sphere, I mean, there's many masks that we wear. Even with like a partner, it will take time in order to really, really be ourselves. But when we are with our families, which is another reason why I think a lot of people don't like being with their families, is because they regress back into old habits and ways of being and ways of thinking and ways of acting. And they don't like this. They want to be very progressive, very like solar in their nature, very individuated. And the lunar qualities of regression and regressing back into where we've come from, into the womb, basically, is very, very uncomfortable and can be very triggering. Okay. But home really is where we are ourselves completely. And so then there's this saying of like, home is where the heart is, right? And there's this feeling of like, wherever we are at home is where then we can really open up and nurture and protect others. Cancer is very protective. I mean, a mother who feels like that there is a threat towards her family or her children or the ones that she cares for, it is so protective. Like in nature, in the wild, like mother, like if you come across like a mother moose or a mother bear, even mother birds, they are so aggressive with not just humans, but with anybody that comes near their young. They're more aggressive than the male within the family unit, because they just have this like strong protective essence about them. And also, okay, so now I'm going to talk about Cancer, about being like the fourth sign. Okay, so we have Aries. Sorry that we didn't start right on Aries. It obviously would have been helpful, just like because when we do this like wheel, it really, one does follow right after the other. So in Aries, this is the birth, okay? And this is like the birth of self, and everything is very primal and very immediate and very instinctive, okay? It's like being a baby. And then Taurus is when we have understood there is a self, but now we have to solidify this, like this person, basically. So it's about stability, and it's about getting secure and security and getting very rooted, very grounded in our bodies. So it's like fixating the personality on some level after all the experiences of Aries. Now it's time to like fixate and solidify oneself. And then Gemini, the third sign, it's about now learning from others in our environment. And we get a sense of who we are based on the feedback that we're getting from our environment and the people around us. So this is about information and the intake of information and learning how to communicate. So it's language, right? And words, and being able to communicate, what it is that we are perceiving. So that's the third step. Now with Cancer, and this is like the successful creation of a human, okay? Because most of us did not have a successful childhood. There was a lot of wounding and a lot of things that weren't provided, so it wasn't successful. But the good news is we go around the wheel many times. So, we then as adults have the opportunity to create ourselves, but we need to be always in association with our heart and with our soul so that we know who we are. So we're not creating a false sense of self. So with Cancer, it's this feeling of nurturance, of safety, of security, of being protected, being loved, being held, belonging. And this is actually the formation of the ego. And also, it is like the understanding of the body in a sense of this is the home that the self resides in. So in its most successful experience, it's really understanding who you are. And really, it is our emotional needs and our emotional base and our emotional world that gives us a great deal of information about who and what we are. And it's really unfortunate that we were not educated around these very basic concepts of being a human being, because it creates a lot of difficulty in adult life when we don't know what it is that we need. And it creates a lot of pain, right? And then there's a lot of projection towards other people, like, but fulfill my needs already. Like, why should I have to tell you what I need? You should just know by now what it is that I need. But that's not the point. The point is that you need to know what you need, and you need to be able to articulate and understand so that you can provide it for yourself first and foremost. So when we understand all the complexities of our upbringing, of our families, of our emotional makeup, of our needs, of our vulnerabilities, of our sensitivities, then we begin to really understand who we are. So Cancer is a very important step in the evolutionary wheel. It's very important. And that's why I say it's at the bottom of the wheel and everything rests on top of it. It's super important and it's deep. These are roots. So, like if we understand that kind of analogy, that, the roots of our being have to extend down into like the core of the earth. And they do. But we have become disconnected from these roots in a lot of ways. So we don't understand the depths of what we are. And that's why it seems so easy to just like disconnect from our families and that it's just that simple, right? But really, there's such important information, even within the dysfunction of the family unit, that you need to know and come to terms with because it is who you are, right? The dysfunction and the beauty is what you are, and it's carried through your blood. And the blood, like the lunar cycles, and women bleed on the lunar cycles, and the blood really is like that which carries the song of the ancestral line that you chose to be a part of. So it's necessary to remember that song. And the original song is one of that is so rich and so fascinating. You wouldn't even dream of turning away from your line if we understood the history, right? Like for us who are part of like the colonizers, we've colonized Canada. And even like here, I'm colonizing Mexico. Like I feel it, it's not easy migrating and navigating to a different country. And yet I'm doing it because I find that the state of health of Canada is too much for me right now. I need to be in a place that offers more of a stable, like emotional experience. And but being a part of the European lines that have colonized, we have really forgotten our ancestry. But the truth is, there was a time that our people were colonized, right? And it just that it happened a lot longer than the indigenous populations of the Americas. So it's more like 1,000 years ago, or maybe even a couple thousand years ago, where our ancestors were colonized. They were brutalized, they were tormented, they were killed, they were hanged, they were burned, and we come from more of that like druid witchery, like earth magic. It's still earth magic, but it just looked different than the indigenous peoples of the Americas. But we were the indigenous peoples of the European, lands, at least part of the original people. We were all original people somewhere, right? But these kinds of like migrations, but also then the deep, deep trauma that happened that disconnected us from our heritage. So we really have forgotten because many years have passed without us practicing. And then there's just so much like confusing misinformation out there about what it means to be like, a person of the earth and how to understand and participate in earth magic, right? They've labeled it witches. And I mean, it's all become a little bit complicated. So we don't really understand just where we've come from. But we've all come from lines that originally were really pure and beautiful, that understood all of the workings of Mother Earth, right? And this is then it takes us to like the original mother, which is this planet, right? So the journey of Cancer and the journey back into Cancer is that of the archetypical divine feminine, okay? And we all have a divine feminine aspect and we all have a divine masculine aspect to us. So the journey back into the divine feminine is really about understanding the connection with our earth mother, this mother that provides for us everything. If we are confused about what a mother looks like, because it's true, like, our mothers were not given the tools or the support to really like be there as mothers. They came from dysfunctional families, from trauma. And then like your grandmothers and grandfathers came from dysfunctional families and trauma, from war, from starvation, from, survival to like really terrible like levels. There's been a lot of harm and damage done on this planet, especially through wars. So really, it's hard to blame people. Like these things change a person and you don't just get over it. And especially when there's absolutely zero support. Like only now is there really support. And even now it's still not enough, right? It's still not enough. So if we struggle to understand what the archetypical divine feminine looks like and feels like, then we look to the earth herself because she gives us everything we need. She gives us everything we need. Everything, no matter what kind of person you are, she is there and she is providing. And one of my favorite books that helped me to really understand the nature of nature itself is Ishmael by, let me get the author's name. Daniel Quinn. Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. And it's really an amazing book. It's an easy read. It's kind of written as a story, and it's about this guy who is looking for like a spiritual teacher. And he finds an ad in the newspaper that says, if you're looking for a teacher, come to this location. And so he arrives and it's a gorilla. And so this gorilla becomes his spiritual teacher and through like telepathy teaches him all kinds of amazing things about the world and about nature itself. And it really helps us to understand that how we have been programmed to farm and do agriculture and really like take up land and really destroy the like biodiversity of the earth that is naturally perfect. But when we do like monoculture, like growing tons of things in one spot and overusing the soil and not, enriching it, like these are big problems for all of us. And that if we just left it all alone, the earth actually grows everything that we need. It's an amazing book. I hope that you read it and get some insights from it in terms of understanding that we are taken care of here. We just don't trust it all anymore. And we don't even know like, how to, you know, be at one with nature anymore. People go and they buy their meat in a supermarket. They don't kill their animals. I've been vegetarian, I've been vegan, I've been raw, I've been all these kinds of things. And now I've come back to just understanding that we all are just going to eat the way that we need to. And that uh, just from my experience, I think some meat is actually very helpful. Strange for me because I didn't feel that way for a lot of years, but at this point in my life, I find meat to like really help in substantial ways. However, I don't feel that I need meat every day, and I definitely don't need meat at every meal. And I also feel that if I had to go and kill an animal, that I might feel very different. But also, I would understand the implications of taking life and ingesting life and what it means to do that. Because not even just like indigenous, like First Nations cultures, like I was watching Anthony Bourdain and he was in Spain or something like that, or Portugal, and he was at like a pig roast, and they killed the pig beforehand, but they used the whole part of the pig. They ate all of it. So it's not just indigenous First Nations cultures that understood and understand that way of life. That's why I say we come from European bloodlines that have very similar understandings about life and about how to take life and how to ingest life, right? So to come into proper relationship with the cancer inside of us is really important to understand, like the next steps and how to become um, in a better relationship with the mother herself. Everything is so dynamic, right? And multifaceted and interconnected. It's a fascinating world and planet we live on, more than what you could possibly understand right now, because we are caught in a web of madness and it doesn't look very awesome right now. And yet, if we took away not the people, it's not the humans, it's the programming. It's the programming. If we stayed away from all the programming and really just put our phones down and didn't watch TV anymore and really just like spend time in nature, we would we would be so much more calm and intelligent and happy. But we have to go through this massive cycle of really being like strung out. It's the age of Aquarius. Really, or at least the beginning of the age of Aquarius. I absolutely do not feel that this is just like what is our fate. I think that there are many surprises that will come along the way. Yes. So, oh yeah, there was something else though that I wanted to read to you. Somebody else that I love, 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 and his name is Michael Meade, and he's really into myth and mythology. He's just a precious person, precious, so wise. We're so lucky to have such beautiful people on the planet right now that understand the necessity of their own journey and the sharing of their journey. That's why I really encourage everybody to understand what is the story of your own journey. If you haven't done Chiron work with me, he talks a lot about Chiron. Chiron is the myth of transformation that really we must go through in order to be healthy on this planet. If you have not done Chiron work with me, I really highly recommend it. It is so helpful. It is very transformative. It's amazing. Okay. It's a whole kind of like, it's like pre-recorded videos and different readings that we do. So Michael Mead, the lost home that we are seeking is ourselves. It is the story we carry within our soul. Now, it's really important to understand that the nodes that we talk about, right? That we talk about within the birth chart that represent the past lives and the future destiny, these are the nodes of the moon. And every planet has their own nodes, and they're not always in the same sign as the moon. So the moon itself, like I said, is regressive. So the moon in the chart and in the psyche of this particular incarnation relates to this particular incarnation. But the nodes of the moon help you to understand then the depths of the regression, right? But then the north node is like the light of the inspiration of like why you're here. So really, the lost home that we are seeking is ourselves. We are the home. It is all here. It is the story we carry within our soul. And that's why it's important to understand what the story of the soul is. And that's what Chiron can really help with. Okay, I want to read the write-up that he did or that he put with this particular post because it's just so wise. Slow and down are modes of the soul. They are connective modes, ways of keeping connected to oneself and to one's environment. Slowing downwards refers to more than simply moving slowly. It means growing down towards the roots of one's being. Instead of outward growth and upward climb, which is what we are taught to do, life at times must turn inward and downward in order to grow in other, more important ways. There is a shift to the vertical down that returns us to root memories. We need our root memories, root metaphors, and timeless things that shape our lives from within. That is so Cancer. It's the timeless things that we can barely grasp because it's so unconscious. It's not a conscious understanding. And yet, the more that we slow down and go within, the more we begin to have an understanding and access to these absolutely essential aspects of who and what we are. Slowing downwards creates opportunities to dwell more deeply in one's life, not on. There's a difference, right? Not dwell on one's life, which is what we love to do. Dwelling on the past and dwelling on all the bad things that happen and dwelling on all the mistakes, but rather dwelling into one's life and into one's body, into one's roots, to understand the magic of your roots. Like I said, we all come from magical, amazing ancestry that has been severely damaged along the way, but that doesn't make it any less magical. For the home we are looking for in this world is within us all along. The lost home that we are seeking is ourselves. It is the story we carry within our souls. That is the epitome of what Cancer is. It's deep. It's deep, loves. Like really, and we need it. We need to be deep. We need to be connected to our families and the stories of our families. And that's why I feel we need to be very conscientious of totally disconnecting from our families. And I don't have an easy time with my family either, but I am committed to the well-being of this earth. And I know that the well-being of this earth depends on me being able to work through, forgive, and come to understand the beauty of the connection that I have with these people that I chose. I chose them. Okay, I think I covered everything. I'm so happy. Yeah, just to, feel your feelings, know your feelings, and that, our sensitivity is beautiful and scary. And I mean, there is no other way. So let's do it together. Connection, connection. I am connected to you. Yes, this is one of those tech, uh, technological connections, but yet I feel that I have found a way to transcend the technology and allow my heart to move through these waves. I hope you feel me because I feel you. And our connection is so important. Okay. And so connecting with ourselves is so necessary. So take the time during this particular month to sit with yourself, meditate, just feel your feelings. Feeling, as Michael Mead was saying, going inward and downward and dwelling within. So I hope this video has really, brought some light onto a sign that is actually very deep and very like unconscious. And I send my love